knows everybody and does so much for our community, as we will learn.
What are the advantages of doing it on YouTube, Rabbi?
It's copied forever, and it goes right to our YouTube page.
So, but the people are not interactive. Is that the difference in Zoom and YouTube?
Exactly. Well, Zoom is great for the interaction, but it's also for some people who are not so computer savvy. YouTube is so much easier, so they can just go on there and watch. Secondly, we can record it on Zoom and then put it on YouTube, but it takes a little bit of time and effort. Whereas if we just do it now, it's done.
Oh,
And all we need to do is go back in and give a title or organize it a little bit. So that's why everything we do on Zoom just about goes to YouTube for all the classes. And then plus it fills up our YouTube page. And the more stuff you have there that's especially timely is very helpful. So
if you're watching it live on YouTube now, can you ask questions as well?
You cannot.
You cannot.
But we send out the link to everybody, but some people don't want to ask questions, and some people just want to watch. And some people are all confident with Zoom, so they're not sure if their audio is off or they don't want to be seen. It's just so much easier. So it's really just up to this gives people a lot of options, but the main reason is because it is so much easier to access on YouTube. Even if you barely have any computer savvy, you can do a search and you go to YouTube, go to Mikvah Israel YouTube page, and it's right there. And so we'll wait another minute or two, Molly, before we begin. Thank you again for agreeing to be on this program. As you'll all learn, as she has done an incredible amount in Savannah for the 12 years she's been here. And we actually have not spent much time. We cross in the same circle, in the same circles, but this is the first time I'll have a chance to have this type of interview with you. So we have also Jeff and Ellen. Ellen's on by iPhone. Jeff and probably Flossie are there. And so we're going to begin. But before we begin, I'm going to introduce Molly.
Yeah, we're all here, Rabbi.
All right. And then we may have one or two other groups coming in during, but most of the people will be watching on YouTube, or we'll check it out later. So Molly is from Northampton, Massachusetts. I assume Northampton is the city and Massachusetts is the state, right? Yes. I didn't know if Northampton, Massachusetts was a state, but or it could be a city. She moved to Savannah in 2006. Oh, I thought it was 2008. And she is the founder and executive director of Loop It Up, which she started in 2008. That's why I was thinking 2008 as a young children's knitting and crochet class. I'm not going to tell too much about it because she'll be doing that. And she, of course, for the last 10 plus years have shared her love of art with the children and adults of the community. She's also the founder and owner of Handmade Neighborhood, a small business which creates opportunities for girls and women to create and market products such as bags and quilts and jewelry. She is really, if she's not on the board of something, she's active in it. So she's on the board of directors for Shelter from the Rain, Dawn's Daughter, the West Broad Street YMCA, which I used to be there all the time because I was very good friends with the previous head. Step It Up Savannah, which I think many of you have heard of, and the Edgemere-Sackville Neighborhood Association. And she's the education director for the A-Town Get Down Festival and stream program coordinator for 21st Century Community Learning. I hope this is all up to date. Centers of Savannah with the Savannah-Chatham County Public School System. So she does a lot, as you can see. And so it is a privilege and a pleasure to have you on our program. This is our Rabbi Haas Interviews. And again, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here.
So there's a ton about you online, obviously. I hope that was all accurate and up to date, but there's not very much of what you did before you moved to Savannah. So if you don't mind giving us a little synopsis of where you grew up and what led you to come here and what led you to be what you are.
Sure. So I grew up in Northampton, Massachusetts, as you had mentioned. Northampton is a really, really special place. It's a small town that has several colleges either in it or close by. So it's just like a really interesting, diverse, active community. I grew up there with my mom and dad.
Molly, I'm going to apologize. I'm I'm going to pause for just a second. I'm having trouble hearing you, so I don't know if anybody else is.
Oh.
So I don't know if it's a little staticky, so I apologize. So I didn't know if there was a way to
Okay.
fix that or reset it or come back in. And I apologize again. I just want to make sure we hear you. That's the opposite of what they want from me. They don't want to hear me, but they definitely want to hear you.
Is it better now? Is
Let's see,
that a
it's
little bit better?
Yeah, that's definitely a little bit better.
A little. Okay,
Yeah.
I moved the thing a little closer. So I'll start over so everyone can hear it well. So I grew up in Northampton, Massachusetts, which is a small city that has several colleges either in or close by. So there's just all kinds of interesting people that are there doing all kinds of things. And I grew up there with my mom, my dad, who live in Savannah now as well, and also with my sister Abby, who lives in Baltimore now. So my childhood there was just very, just like a very creative experience. I went to, for elementary school, the lab school that is where all of the students in the education department at Smith College are doing their student teaching. And so they were doing just amazing kind of inventive curriculum with students there. So we really got to benefit from all of this sort of cutting edge, very progressive education at a young age. And I think that really contributed a lot to what I've ended up doing now, because everything we did at that school was just amazingly well woven together and sort of cross-curricular experience. So I had a lot of good input there. And then my mom is also an artist and my dad is a musician. So we just had like a very creative childhood. And when I graduated high school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I wasn't even really sure that I wanted to go to college right away. But I really liked art, and so my parents, fortunately, very open-minded, they suggested that maybe I look at some art schools. And so one of the art schools that I looked at was SCAD. We found out about it because my dad had a friend in college whose daughter went there and had a good experience. So I ended up coming down here to visit, and I remember just kind of falling in love with the city of Savannah before I even visited the school. Like, we got into town, we went out to dinner or something. I just remember saying to my dad, I'm gonna move here. And he was like, okay, you know. So sure enough, I did move here. I started attending SCAD in, I guess that was fall 2006. And I loved my time at SCAD, but there was always just kind of something about Savannah that made me want to be here, and I didn't really know what that was right away. It was just kind of this pull, and I think that happens to a lot of people that come here. There's just this feeling that right? There's just this feeling that you get of like, I'm supposed to be here.
And I apologize, we are still getting some, I can hear you better, but we're still getting some feedback. Is everybody else getting feedback as well? Okay, I don't know, maybe is there a way to reset it? And I apologize again, is there a way to reset it, or is it?
I'm on our tablet right now, but I could just try it on my phone. That might work better.
Yeah, if you don't mind. I just want to make sure, because I'm afraid you're gonna leave again.
We don't want that. Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay, cool. So as we're waiting, we've invited David Rosenthal to tell us a very clean joke. He was told ahead of time. It probably took him about a week to find a clean joke in his repertoire, because that is just very difficult for him. You're still on mute. Maybe that's part of the joke. Maybe he's telling the joke and it's
Rabbi,
not funny.
I appreciate the offer, but you know, I laugh a lot, but I don't know any jokes.
Okay. All right. See if that Molly can come in.
But it's great seeing you and everyone else. It's
good to see
nice
you.
to
Good
be
to see
here.
Amy. All right, Molly is back. Let's see if we can get
Okay, I'm going to mute again. Thank you.
Okay, I have returned. Maybe this will be a little bit better. Does that sound a little better?
That does sound better. Sorry about that.
No, totally.
Every time on one of these things, there's always some technological problem, often with me, obviously.
always, it's like, it's, it is what it is. I think also, Zoom is so overloaded at this point, and sometimes things just don't go smoothly. Okay, shall I get back in where we left off?
Yeah, so you came to Savannah, which I think was a very smart choice on your part. You're going to school. So what I just found out, I just understood now. So you started SCAD in 2006, and then you started your organization, Loop It Up Savannah, in 2008, right?
Yes, that's
So
exactly
so
right.
knowing how long it takes to go through college, for some people, 4 years, for some people, 5 years. So you started it while you were at SCAD then.
Yep, that's exactly right. So what happened was Howard Morrison, who many of y'all probably knew, he was a great kind of mover and shaker, executive connector type person here in Savannah. He had met some people through a connection with CETA who ran the Craft Yarn Council of America, which is like an organization or a coalition of all of the biggest yarn manufacturers in the country. And so they're all based in New York, but they were down here for some reason. And he met with them and learned about this community program that they started called Warm Up America, which was sort of an intergenerational effort for young people and senior citizens in Manhattan to work together to, like, the older people would teach the younger people knitting and crochet, and then they would make stuff for groups in the community that were in need. So it might have been like, little hats for babies, or blankets for the homeless community, or really a variety of projects. And so at that point, and this is 2008, Howard was on the board at West Broad Y, and Peter Dolliver, who I know that you knew, Rabbi Haas, he was the executive director there at that point. So they just kind of came up with this idea that it would be cool to start a kids knitting and crochet program that would be a collaboration with like Senior Citizens Inc. and just kind of bringing all this good stuff together. And of course, part of that was that they needed lots of volunteers. And so very fortunately, Howard went to my department at SCAD, which was the fibers department, and met with Kiowa Easley, who's the chair there still, and just kind of asked if she had any students that might want to come volunteer. And so she asked me, and obviously I said yes, kind of not knowing what I was walking into my fate, so to speak, at that moment. So I just started going over to the Y and volunteering with this kids knitting program. And it started out real small. There was probably, 6 kids or so that were there. And the Y had gone through some rough times. So we were like meeting in this room that was, the lights didn't really work, and like when it rained, like water's dripping in, and it was just kind of like a very humble beginning. But I immediately fell in love with the kids that I met there, and the families that I met there, the staff that I met there, and just kind of had this moment where I realized, like, okay, there's something about this that was not random. I was supposed to be here. This is supposed to happen. And so I just kind of stayed there, and in the weeks and months and eventually years that followed that, we decided to kind of expand the program pretty early on to include more like expressive art. So, the knitting and crochet was really wonderful in terms of building fine motor skills and mastering a skill, and, making something that's useful, and how gratifying that is to do that. But we also wanted to give the kids opportunities to tell their stories and share what was going on in their world. So we had, of course, no money or anything starting this up. So we just started like collecting materials from different places, asking for donations, and it just kind of blossomed over the years. Eventually started working with other nonprofits. I would bring programming there. Schools would come to the Y, and so that was an amazing experience. And I stayed there until the very beginning of 2015, at which point I
left the Y and incorporated Loop It Up as its own nonprofit. So we've been doing our own thing for the past 5 years.
Very cool. And I always thought the West Broad Street Y was very interesting because there actually is no West Broad Street anymore. West Broad
Yeah.
Street used to be this what is now MLK. So it's a Y named after a street that no longer exists. So and I know Larry and Dave and I were thinking the same thing when we were in college. We were thinking about starting nonprofit organizations. I know that's what I was thinking about the whole time when I was 19 and 20, and then keeping it going for the next 12 years plus. So that's it's quite amazing for someone to move in 2006 to Savannah, realize they want to stay here, start an organization while you're still got 2+ years of university, and then continue with this work afterwards. So it's pretty quite amazing. It shows we have a lot of people in Savannah that do not do what you did in terms of starting an organization, but come here for SCAD or other colleges and fall in love, and they stay here. And there's such a vibrancy that you can bring to this community and that's before you're as dedicated as you are. So really quite incredible. Does anybody have any questions for her before we continue? Okay, I will. So you started this organization. So the idea is to help kids with arts and crafts. What are the nuts and bolts? How does it work? How do kids apply? You advertise? What in terms are you helping? Are you working with the school district? Who are you working with now? And so forth.
Sure. So, I'll just say, like, I definitely, this was not planned for me. It wasn't like I set out to do this. It just kind of evolved somewhat organically as the needs appeared. So I think that that's really central to our story and our mission, that like what we do is really sort of answering or participating in a conversation that is going on in this community. So, we started out with the knitting and crochet, and it was like, that was really awesome. But then just by paying attention to what was going on with the kids, it became really clear, okay, we need to sort of broaden what we do to do what it is that they're looking for and they're wanting to do. So that has really been like my MO this whole time. And I think is why we've been able to grow as much as we have and become so rooted in a relatively short period of time as a new organization. Because it's not just like coming in and saying, this is what we want to do. It's like really having a very, just an inclusive conversation with all involved about what do we want as a collective. So that has led us to our really extensive programs that we have right now. At this point, we have a building on Waters and 59th, which is sort of our headquarters for our offices and storing all of our materials and things like that. But the majority of our programs, this is pre-COVID, and then I'll talk about COVID later, majority of our programs happen in the schools. We have a great partnership with our school district. We do both school day programs that are either like an ongoing program, like we're in a school doing a specific program every Tuesday for the whole year, or it might be like a more project-based program. And then we also do after-school programs, and the school district has a 21st Century program, which is federal funding that is for Title I schools to do out-of-school programs, so after-school, weekend, and summer camp programs. So they contract with us to run a lot of the enrichment elements of that program that go along with the academic support that the students get. So that's what we do in the schools. We also work with lots of other nonprofits. We bring programs into other people's, pretty much anyone that's doing stuff with kids, we're happy to bring in programming into their structure. So that might be a Boys and Girls Club, a YMCA, somebody that's got an after school program or summer camp. And then we also work with juvenile court, and we do ongoing programs with justice involved students. and I feel like I'm leaving something out, but we, basically anyone that's got stuff going on with youth and families is who we work with. And the content of those programs varies quite a lot. So some of it is, mural projects or just kind of variety of different types of art that kids love to do. And our mission is really to give young people opportunities to explore and express who they are, both as individuals and as members of a community. So most of our projects have some element of each individual child sharing something or creating something, and then it gets incorporated into a larger piece. So even in a mural project, we really focus on what each student brings to the table and then let them have that experience of figuring out how it all fits together, because that's kind of what we have to do in life. I think it's a great way to use art as something that we enjoy, something that's fun, but it gives us opportunities to develop social skills and understand how we fit into this bigger picture. So we also have a couple of specific focus areas. We have a lot of programs that focus on supporting literacy, especially for the younger grades. We have a program that's called Looping Literacy Together, which incorporates all types of younger grade reading support and art and kind of ties all that together. And then we also have a youth yoga and mindfulness program that also really leans on art as the sort of bridge to bring kids into it and develop those social skills that that stuff leads to.
And if you've gone from just crocheting and whatever to even to art. Of course, you're very well known for the murals, obviously, but also for a wide variety. So it's not just art anymore. What you're saying, it's art along with a wide range, and you can do it after school, you do it at camp, in the school district, in a wide variety of places, and you're working with the community, which is a really nice way to do it, because it's also an easy way to publicize what you have if the school district knows you have it. Larry.
Yeah, no, fascinating, Molly. I envy you for going to SCAD. Jane and I and the Flossie and Jeff are, big fans of SCAD. We go to the museum quite often there, and it's the kind of place I wish I would have gone to school. It just looks like, it's a fun day every day. Are they still involved in any of your activities? Because they have so much to offer in animation and things that I think would would turn kids on into, I'm glad you're expanding into other areas. And it just seemed like there's so much there that is just unbelievable fun and educational and, would lead to jobs.
Yes, absolutely. So we work with SCAD in a couple of ways. One is that, individual professors will have their students collaborate with our students in some way. So that might be that their students are creating some sort of workshop that our kids get to participate in. Sometimes they're designing products or things like that that are then used in our programs. So there's definitely like hands-on collaboration with students. We also take interns pretty frequently, and many of those are from SCAD. And then there's sometimes there's opportunities for us to link with the university in bigger ways. Like we've done collaborations with the museum, which is so great. Like I think the best one that we ever did was pretty soon after the museum opened, and they created this curriculum that was when we were still based at the Y. They bussed over like a group of maybe 30 or 40 campers every single Friday for the whole summer. And they did different activities, learned about different exhibits in the museum, and then they got to put on their own art show that at the end that was open to the parents. So really just awesome ways that they've reached out to us over the years. And also Erin Atandi, who's been with SCAD for a long time, she's now the new director of, I think the position's called the Director of Diversity and Inclusion. And she's really been somebody that has continuously reached out to us with opportunities over the years. And now that she's in this new role, she continues to do that. So definitely some wonderful relationships there. And, they also donate a lot of art materials to us. Because they collect materials from students when the semester ends or the quarter ends, or most recently when everyone went home due to the pandemic. And they contribute truckloads of materials to art programs, mostly through the schools. But, after this, when everybody left in March, when the pandemic began here, they brought a whole truck of art supplies over to our building. And that really has helped us with some of the distance learning programs that we're doing now. So good relationship there.
I wanted to mention one thing. We live over in Sun City and, over by Bluffton in South Carolina, across the border from Georgia. And it's a large adult community. And the Shalom Club there had an initiative where they went out to Allenwood State Penitentiary. I don't know whether you've heard of this, but Allenwood has very innovative, the lowest, and I'll say this wrong, recidification rate. In other words, returning to crime kind of rate. I can't say that word. Of all of the prisons in South Carolina, they're very progressive, and they offer different things for the inmates to do, which are entertaining and educational. And one of the things that the Shalom Club started with them was knitting and crocheting. And they take donations all the time now out to Allenwood, and they bring people out there who will teach them. And it's become, they have farming and woodworking and beehive keeping and, some of the other kinds of things, watching animals, pet kind of, care and things like this. But that became one of their new activities. And so it's not only for children that some of these things are so wonderful, the knitting. And my wife is a knitter and crocheter, and she's sitting here, and she has done a lot of the knitting and crocheting for.
We will show you.
Oh yeah, we'll show you a sample of
Oh,
it.
nice.
But Sun City also has
Apropos to do it.
They have a knitting and crocheting club you may want to reach out to, because they also get involved in, in activities
And
for
donations.
and things of that nature. So
That's awesome. Yeah, it's such a accessible thing to do. It's a skill that you can learn pretty quickly, and then all of a sudden you're able to produce something you had no idea you could make. And I think that's something that certainly we see with children, but also with adults, particularly adults who have had a pretty hard time in life, to be able to learn a skill and make something that people like and appreciate and are proud of you and excited about the fact that you made, that does a lot for a person, especially if you have not received that kind of feedback from the world, in your life. And so we see that a lot with kids, that that's partly why they love it so much, that it's becomes a really positive way to interface with the rest of the world. And I think that definitely is the case for adults as well, particularly in circumstances like this.
And just in case you're wondering, we get so prepared for this. Jane actually doesn't know how to knit at all or crochet. I just took one of the ones I'm working on and gave it to her to have it in the background to kind of help the overall ambiance. So,
I mean,
thank you,
this
Jane.
is really good staging.
Yeah.
Very convincing.
You really go all out. So this is Joan. Welcome, Joan. So you mentioned the obvious question of the moment, and that is, for a program such as yours, which of course it's so important to be hands-on, obviously do other things, but art is still a huge part of what you do. How are you dealing with what's going on now?
Yeah, so it has really been an adventure for everybody these last, 6 months that we've been in this. So we have, I think, like almost everybody else running an organization or a business at this point, we have really had to reinvent ourselves in this moment. And, it's kind of a funny story, right, the sort of last weekend that was at all normal, before everything turned upside down, I was at a fish fry that my friend Monstello Stewart, his fraternity, the Sigmas, do this fish fry fundraiser. And we were all there, and Van Johnson, our mayor, he said to me, what are you going to do? Virtual crafts? And I was like, yes, Van, that's exactly what we're going to do. Virtual crafts, you know? And so he kind of said that to me jokingly, and we were cracking up about it. And then, you know, Monday rolled around and St. Patrick's Day was canceled, and then we weren't going back to school. And I just kept thinking about that conversation. And we in the past have made art kits that kids get to take home. And it's usually been kind of like a gift that we give at the end of a program or something like that. But I just started thinking about those, plus this idea of virtual crafts. And so we just started making these kits called Art Smart Activity Kits, which it at the beginning was a 13 by 15 inch Ziploc bag filled with a variety of materials and activities. And so those have now evolved. At first, we were just kind of throwing in what we had at the office. But then over the weeks and months, we started to get more specific with what was going in them. We started collecting certain items. We had partners that were making printed material to go home with kids, like the music festival. They have the wonderful Musical Explorers program that all of our schools participate in. And so they made this booklet called Musical Explorers at Home. So we got several thousand of those delivered to our office one day, and we've been able to include those in the kits. We had, of course, the pandemic really kind of threw a wrench into these awesome plans that many people were working on with census outreach. And so we're involved with the Complete Count, Chatham County Complete Count Committee. And so one of the things that the committee had made was a census coloring book that some students from Johnson High School made specific to Chatham County. And so we ended up being able to put those in the kits. And so it just kind of grew. And then, you know, the longer that it went on, the more I started thinking, okay, well, maybe we should start packing materials in these bags that are specific to certain projects or curriculum or programming that we could run through either a digital classroom or make a video that corresponds with it. So that's what we're doing now, is we are developing that whole set of things, which is, you know, not only the bags with all the relevant stuff in it, but corresponding videos, and then curriculum and lesson plans and that are applicable with grade level standards. So you could have the same video, but you would do different projects based on the grade level of the students and skills we're trying to support them with. And then also, you know, it's like just in terms of access, you try to create any entry point that a child has that it is something positive for them to do. So like if they just have the bag of stuff, there's instruction sheets that are easy for kids to understand about how to do the project. If they just have the video, we try to make it so that the materials that are needed are kind of basic enough that you might be able to find them at home if you didn't have the bag that we provide. So it's just been an incredible process, very strenuous, you know, like you know what you do and you do it all the time, and then to have to totally change what you're doing and squish it into this new medium and figure out how to just address all these new challenges it's been a real experience. But I'm really pleased with how it's going, and also like how awesome all of our partners have continued to be in collaborating on actually getting these things out to the students. So, you know, we have individual teachers that will come and pick up a box, and then they'll notify all their parents, I'm going to be at this park at this time, come by and pick up a bag with your kid. You know, we've teachers doing things like that. The school district has just been incredibly supportive as a whole. Last semester, when they were still serving meals at the schools, we were passing the kits out at the schools. We've talked about maybe being able to distribute them on the buses that are bringing the meals into the neighborhoods now. So, people have been great about just helping get the stuff to the students. And I think it also really is helping the teachers, because as we're learning in this virtual learning situation that we're in, there's times where kids need something constructive to do. And if it has educational value, even better, because not everybody's logged in to the class at the same time. And there's just kind of like a lot of need for additional material. And if it's supporting what the kids should be learning at their grade level anyway, then that's a good thing. And then we also, Rabbi Haas and I have just crisscrossed more lately with a group that's formed called the RISE Coalition, which was formed at the request of the mayor and the superintendent. They met with a group of faith leaders that, actually, Rabbi Haas, maybe you were probably at that meeting. I was not. You could probably tell this part of the story better than me, when y'all met a few months back.
Yeah, I mean, basically the issue that she's doing a lot more than us, we're trying to find our way is because the Chatham County School District has closed the schools, no kids that go to public school in our area are actually going on site. Obviously, it's very difficult to manage that many kids. And so the big issue has become, which I'll mention other times, is before, if you didn't have a computer at home, you were definitely behind. Now, if you don't have a computer at home, you don't go to school. I mean, it's a huge difference even there. And so the city, the school district, the mayor's office are very concerned about students that don't have access to technology, Wi-Fi, and whose parents may be working, so they may need somebody to watch them. So they're creating sites around the city where students can come and they'll have supervision, and they'll do while they're in school, they will be in school there on the computer in a safe way with a few other kids there as well. And they'll have Wi-Fi access, so they need Wi-Fi access, they need computers. And obviously there's a lot of issues because every school district in Georgia and everywhere else is doing the same thing. So access to thousands, maybe of hundreds of thousands of Chromebooks and iPads has made it very difficult. I went to buy a couple for somebody the other day and they just don't have Chromebooks. It'll be another 2 weeks until Best Buy gets them. So this is what she's working with now, which we may try and partner with her and try and do some of these bags and boxes that she's doing. We already put the technology site online, other places where you can donate. And so she's really doing a lot more with it. I just happened to be at the first meeting. So,
well, I'm really glad. I'm glad that y'all met, because it's grown into this incredible collaboration. And I like literally don't really remember how I got pulled into it at all, but I'm very glad that I did. I've just been very impressed with how various congregations have figured out what they can do and have just started to do it, and so some of them are hosting pods of kids every single day. Others are helping make sure that each host site has all the resources that they need. And so we've been able to provide, the kits that we make to them as enrichment activities, and also just kind of help with thinking about just how to organize all this, because I think that, it's like for years of figuring out how to run like 25 programs at once in 15 different locations that all have different constraints at the same time. Like that's something that our organization has kind of figured out how to do in a way that works for others. So I've just been very glad to get to have that skill that I'm not exercising otherwise right now because school's closed, that have that be of assistance to the community. So that's been another great thing to be part of. And we'll see how long we're in this, but it's like, I feel like the negatives of this outweigh the positives for sure. We would have never asked for this. However, there are things that have emerged and collaborations that have emerged that I do think that our community will be better for when it's over. So there's, you know, a little bright spot in this tumultuous moment that we're in.
And if you need help with some of the bags, as we mentioned, that may be something we can help out with. We're also looking into maybe sponsoring one of the sites, and I have to actually email the guy right away. So we're
Awesome.
coming towards the end, but I want to see what are you doing personally now in Savannah? I know you love Savannah. What are some of the things you like to do here, pre and current, pre-COVID and currently, outside of
Yeah.
helping other people?
Sure. Well, I mean, like truthfully, as you can imagine, the energy and effort that it takes to do what I've spent the last 12 years doing is kind of all consuming, you know, so that this has primarily been what I've been doing. But that has led to many, many wonderful and very fulfilling personal relationships and situations as well. So I have 5 godchildren who I met when the youngest, who's now 9, was about a week old. So they have just been an incredibly wonderful part of my life, and just been wonderful to see them grow up. And my oldest godson, Shawnee, he's 18. He's going to get to vote for the first time this year, which we're very excited about, of course. So, you know, I love to get to spend time with them. And my mom and dad live down here now too, which has been wonderful. My mom actually works with Loop It Up now. She writes all of our grants and does our bookkeeping. So that's been really great to kind of get to be with them more. And also, just the web of friends that have become family that I've met here has been incredibly wonderful. And, you know, all of us that are my closest group of peers, we're all people that have kind of focused mostly on the work that we've been doing for the past 10 years or so. And so now with the pandemic, there's kind of this interesting moment of like, okay, we're all still working, but we can't work to the same amount, the same degree that we were before. So we've been able to kind of develop other parts of our lives in this past 6 months, which is really, is really good. It's like, I've spent more time doing non-work things in the past 6 months than I probably have in the last 10 years put together. So that's been another kind of nice undertone to this crazy moment that we're in.
Yeah, and we're all right there with you. And it's been an interesting side effect, but so happy to have you. One of the great things about this area is that the city and the school district and the police department work so well with the nonprofit organizations, with the houses of worship. And I think it's only getting better and better the last couple of years. We're seeing a lot of crossover from a variety of places. And so thank you very much and keep it up. And hopefully we'll get to work with you at a project either during the COVID or afterward. Hopefully after it's over very soon.
Yes, I agree. And thank you so much for having me. And I'll definitely send you the info about helping us pack the art bags too.
And so again, Molly, thank you. And I encourage everyone to check out Loop It Up Savannah. They have a wonderful website. And obviously there's limits to what we can do, but there's still a lot we can do. So thank you very much. And we all look forward to talking to you later. Hopefully afterwards, at some point, we'll take you to lunch. Do you eat sushi, by the way?
Oh my, it's my favorite. If I had to pick one food, it would be sushi. So
like me, that when I was applying here, I looked for how nice the Jewish community was, and was there enough sushi restaurants, and that was important. So
those are very important factors,
Okay, so I'll see you there.
All right, nice to meet you all, and nice to talk with you.
Stay safe, everybody. Next week, we'll be interviewing Asia Pitts, who is the new lead organizer for SAGEM, Savannah Area Interfaith Justice Ministry. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a lot of congregations are getting together and organizations to start a social justice process. It's taken us over a year to get it started, but it is now starting, and we'll be starting our meetings in October, and our group advisor will be, our lead organizer will be here next week at 1. All right, guys. Thank you again. See you guys next week. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you very much, Molly. Great meeting.
Thank you guys. Take care.
You too. Take